Hey everybody, welcome back for episode 2 of the Smoker Build. If you haven't seen episode 1, well, go back, watch that, then come back here because obviously it won't make a whole lot of sense how we went from there to here. So try and watch it in order, it'll probably make a lot more sense. Today, I am going to be putting all of the shelves in and making the trays for the smoker, and hopefully I'll get to put the smokestacks in as well, but who knows what I'm going to do. So let me show you how I did it.
Jumping right into it, I am going to start by reinforcing the bottom and the top of the door opening. I don't know, the big hole in the tank. Since it's thin material of the actual tank, I wanted to make sure I could reinforce the top and the bottom because I will be putting the majority of my shelf structure on the reinforcement angles just so I don't have to keep welding straight to the tank because it is kind of thin and eventually I'm sure I'll just burn through. So to avoid that, I am adding the reinforcement, plus it helps keep the shape of the tank so it doesn't warp and shift later down the road when it's in use or when I'm tacking or welding any of the pieces inside of it. I finished tacking the top and gave it a good quality control hit, and it wasn't very good. So I'm gonna clamp the corner back on and get some good tacks in there. See, this is why we do these tests, to make sure it is nothing but the best quality. I cut all of the shelf angles to length, and I am now going through and welding a 1-inch piece of angle on each one of them as a tray tilt holder. I don't know if there's some actual name for it, but that's what I'm doing. I'm adding some pieces so when you pull the trays out and they lean, it'll hold against it so the tray doesn't fall out of the smoker. Hopefully that makes enough sense. I'm going to go through and weld all of the chunks of angle on each one because it's way easier to weld them out here in the vise than in the tank, so make my life a little easier. But now I have them all done, I am going to start installing all of the lower shelves into the tank. I am starting with the bottom because I am going to build the actual brackets for the top shelves off of each one of the lower shelves. So I got to put those in first. And I kind of realized that filming myself doing this is actually making it a little harder because if I wasn't, I would fully just lean into the tank and get it, where it needs to be a little easier. But then all you would see is, the giant panda on my back, and well, that doesn't make for a good video. So I'm using the super long stretch ability to adjust everything in the back, and you might not be able to see it right now, but that angle is a 1/4 inch high. Unfortunately, it isn't until after I get all of them in and welded that I noticed that it was 1/4 inch high. So I did have to go back and cut that off and adjust it, because if we're gonna go overkill on everything, well, you gotta fix everything then. Consistency is the key. Oh, look at the blissful ignorance. At this moment, I have no idea that what I'm doing is going to become a real pain later. Now that I got all of the bottom shelves shenanigans all worked out, I am moving on to installing all of the uprights that the upper shelves will attach to. When I started putting the center supports in, I realized that by using an angle, only one side of the shelf, arms, whatever, are going to be able to get welded nicely, and I didn't really like that, so I am going through and adding another piece of angle to each section to make it a square so I can get a good weld on both sides. And you might be asking, why didn't I just get some square stock for that? Well, then I would have to leave and go get it. I already had the angles, so whatever. It comes out the same. It'll work just fine. And once you look at it from the front, you can't even tell. So no big deal. We'll just use it. Now that I have all the shelves done, I am going to move on to making the trays for the smoker. I didn't like the thought of using my table because unfortunately the plate I used for my table is a bit wonky, so it isn't super flat. But luckily we had this big chunk of stainless sitting in the shop, and it is, well, relatively flat. So I'm going to use the plate to hopefully keep everything flat and square, so when I put the trays in later and they're all done, they don't bind up and sit funny. Fingers crossed. I actually cut all of the miters on these trays by hand with a cutoff wheel. First time I've ever done it, and it actually came out pretty good. I think my worst discrepancy was 1/8 of an inch, and I don't know about where any of you work, but the shop I work in, 1/8 inch is within tolerance, so we're good and we're just gonna keep going. With all the trays tacked together, I'm going to go through, get them all welded, then I'll grab my grinder, clean up all the welds so everything's nice, smooth, and ready to go. And I just showed you this one being welded, so let's be fair, you've seen them all welded, so we're going to move on. And there is a slight change of plan. I had intended to show you what I'm doing for the smokestacks, but I got into it a little bit and realized I still have to flip the whole tank over to put the smoke box on and some other stuff. So instead of having the smokestacks sticking out and getting in my way, I decided that I'm just going to make the front shelf for the smoker, and that's where we're going to end today. But I still have to go through and show you all of the expanded metal that I am using for the actual trays. So I'm going to cut that out right now and then get a little bit of a test fit on, and then I'll show you putting all of the expanded metals in each of their corresponding trays. Now that I got all the expanded metal cut out, I'm going to start putting them all in their trays. Make sure they fit, because honestly the cut isn't that great. That's why this corner's sticking up a little, but with a little applied force, it popped right in. Hopefully as I tack the whole thing in, it doesn't become an issue and bubble up in the corner, but it'll be alright. I'm going to start with the small shelf. This is actually going to be flipped upside down from its current position to actually be the shelf. The rest of the trays will go in with the angle side up so it's an actual tray, just in case something tries to roll or move. Hopefully the lip will catch it. We'll keep our fingers crossed. With the shelf done, I pushed on it a little bit just to make sure it was sturdy. Everything seems pretty good. So now I'm going to fly through tacking the rest of the trays, and I will show you how they all look actually put into the smoker. Alright, moment of truth. I'm going to put all of the trays into the smoker, give it a good look over, make sure all my trays are sitting flat and where I want them. Then I am going to move on to showing you how I installed the shelf on the front of the tank. I am using 2 of the original legs from the actual tank as the mount for my shelf. I made it so hopefully it'll sit right in the center of both of the legs. I'm going to tack it on, get it welded, and then nothing. That's it. That's the end of this one. Come back for the next one where hopefully I will be making the smoke box and getting it attached to the actual tank. So that wraps up things here today. Thank you for coming to check out this video. If you like what I did, hit that comment, like, subscribe, share, run outside, scream at your neighbors about it. I don't know, whatever you're into. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But thanks for watching.